The light is directed down towards the display, the opposite of an LCD display. It's exactly like ambient light. For the reader, perfect in the bedroom, perfect in direct sunlight. People are going to love this device, and they're going to love the light.
Brad Stone is here as the senior writer for Bloomberg Business Week. He is the author of The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon. He conducted 300 interviews for the book, which traces the rise of one of the most influential companies of the past 20 years. I am pleased to have him on this program to talk not only about Amazon, but about its founder, Jeff Bezos. First, the company. What does he want Amazon to be and become?
I think what he would say is he wants to build a lasting company, the most customer-focused company in the world, and a company that, satisfies its customers. I think what his critics would say is that he wants to be the last man standing, to build Amazon into the biggest retailer in the world and maybe even the biggest company in the world. And I think probably both are true.
So it'd be bigger than Microsoft and bigger than Walmart.
And certainly he's got a long way to go. Walmart, notched $400 billion in sales last year. Amazon, 65. So they really are just getting started.
How about market cap?
Market cap, Amazon also has a long way to go. But investors are showing a lot of faith in Jeff Bezos and his team.
And a lot of faith, even though he doesn't report a lot of earnings.
Right, and the important distinction there is that Amazon is a very profitable company. It's shown that in 2009, 2010, but he's reinvesting, those profits into building new fulfillment centers all around the world, into developing new kinds of hardware, into expanding Amazon's cloud business. He's got the foot on the accelerator. I mean,
that's just something about him. I mean, here's a company that was a retail business, but he decided to expand into these other areas, have nothing to do with the retail business.
That's right. He, is...
Or the online retail business.
Uniquely restless and ambitious about seizing opportunities. A couple of years ago, let's say 2004, 2005, Google goes public. Right away, its market capitalization is many times Amazon's. It kind of looked like Jeff had selected one of the least inspiring business models of the new age. But during that time, and eBay is valued more highly than Amazon, he just refuses to stand still. And he says to his employees, if we're going to get out of this, we have to innovate our way out. And it's during that period of time
Get out of what?
Well, get out of being a low-margin business whose employees are fleeing to more resourceful, better capitalized competitors. And it's during that time that we see the beginning of the cloud business. We see Amazon beginning to invent the Kindle. So he really, sees these opportunities before a lot of his competitors do, and then pushes his company to achieve them.
So what makes Amazon great?
I'd say it starts with Jeff.
Okay.
Right? I mean, his drive, like Bill Gates or Larry Page or Steve Jobs, his high standards, the fact that he pushes everyone around him, to operate at their best. And I think the fact that he's developed a culture for the company, that allows lots of innovation to sprinkle up from the grassroots of the company. I mean, just this year we've seen really Amazon firing on all cylinders, from expanding its grocery business to getting into apparel to the new Kindle Fire tablets. They're doing a lot, and it's because he's created that culture.
But the Kindle Fire tablets, all of that, he has said, I think publicly, the purpose of them is to be able to have you demand his products that he wants to sell you to go in the Kindle.
That's right. And unlike Apple, he can sell those things at cost because you buy one of them and you become a better Amazon customer.
Yeah. And what's the criticism of the company?
Amazon's a tough competitor. They say they're customer-focused, but they can be pretty ruthless, and we've seen it in its competition with Zappos, which it ultimately acquired, same with Diapers.com, and the way in which it has stimulated a transition to ebooks and book publishing. There aren't a lot of folks at book publishers or bookstores, for that matter, that have a very kind view of Amazon, and it's because Jeff and his team running the Kindle really push the publishers with threats, with rewards, with a combination. we'll take you out of our recommendation engine if you don't supply a certain number of ebooks, or if you don't renegotiate your contract with us in a suitable way. I actually account for that evolution in the book. Amazon, they were worried that Apple or Google might get the ebooks first, and so they moved and applied a lot of pressure on book publishers to get them to make the ebook transition at a time when the book publishers didn't really see the value in it.
I'm going to skip around here. He recently bought the Washington Post. Many people thought that's a very hard challenge right there. Do you believe he has or will find a way to make the Washington Post work as a sustainable economic model?
I think he's got the resources to try a lot of things, including to fail, for years if he needs to. Of course, he's extremely wealthy. The opportunity of the Post presented itself to him. I don't think he went looking for it. We know now that eBay founder Pierre Omidyar was also interested in buying it. Yeah. And Jeff's got a lot of confidence in his formula, which is, long-term thinking, experimentation, trying a lot of different things, and I think he's going to be patient and perhaps tilt the Post towards its digital properties, and we'll see.
We will clearly do that. I mean, that's where the future is, and that's what he knows.
Absolutely, and maybe one day the Washington Post is an asset that ultimately helps Amazon's Kindle business as it competes with, a set of digital properties from Apple and Google.
Jeff Bezos, who I know is a friend, in the interest of full disclosure, he's somebody I've known for a long time, interviewed more than most. He is a relentless advocate of growth and excellence and pushing yourself to the limits of performance. Yes?
Absolutely. And I would argue that probably the Internet and this business environment demands that.
To be competitive, you have to do that.
That's right. I mean, we've seen so many of Amazon's fellow first-generation Internet companies that didn't have that same outlook. AOL, Yahoo, eBay for that matter. They didn't quite have the drive and the pursuit of excellence that Jeff does, and they've all stumbled in various ways.
You've also written about, in Jeff's personal life, you found his birth father. How did you do that?
First, I'll just say, as I started this project, it was a kind of gap in the Bezos story. We know a lot about his early years, including a lot about his real father, his adoptive father, Mike Bezos, who has an incredible story. Came from Cuba, right. Became a successful executive at Exxon, invested early on in Amazon. But I did wonder about his biological father, who left his life when he was 3. And, Jeff has said that he never met the man, never had a relationship with him. I knew his name, so I just went looking for him. And one of the interesting things I found was that, in Albuquerque, where Jeff was born, in the 1960s, he was part of a unicycle troupe that performed in circuses. Yeah. And so I tracked him down. He's running a bike shop outside Phoenix, and I walked into his store one day and told him what I was working on, and he had no idea that his biological son had become one of the most successful men in the world.
And so then what happened?
Well, I took him to dinner. I got his story, remarkable story of a man who had some problems early in life and had tremendous regrets about losing touch with Jeff and with his family, but then really ironed out his life and has a great family now and is a successful entrepreneur and runs a bike shop and is actually fairly beloved by his customers. And, I tell the story in the book. He got in touch with Jeff and Jeff's mom, and there was some contact there, not a lot. But, I think it fills in a hole, in the Jeff Bezos story. People wonder, why is this man so relentless, so driven? Perhaps this explains a little bit of that.
What's his obsession with space?
Well, he grew up watching Star Trek and watching the Apollo missions, and it inspired him, got him interested in math and engineering and in inventing. He was a big tinkerer as a kid. So I think, it was always part of his own personal roadmap for his future, doing something in space. And when he got the resources at Amazon, he decided that he would go pursue those passions. I think at one point he probably thought, maybe this is something I'll do full time. But as he got more and more interested in Amazon and its potential, he now kind of runs Blue Origin. Yeah. The company's called as a side project. He spends about 1 day a week there. And the idea is to lower the cost of getting to space and to ultimately send tourists into space.
It used to be said, and some still suggest, that there's a race out in Silicon Valley and in Seattle, and it's between Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google. Is that true?
Sure, the four horsemen.
Yeah.
And we can argue whether Microsoft is part of that, but yeah, because all
I think
their
the list first came from Eric Schmidt.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all these companies started with different bases, but they've converged, and the battle is to sell you the next tablet, sell you your video streaming service or your music, your books, your magazines. I would argue that these are the four kind of tentpole companies of the century.
Is one about to emerge? Will one inevitably emerge as first among equals?
The markets are so big here that there's room for all of them, and as I said, they all have their kind of different core businesses. It remains to be seen who emerges, but certainly you would think, considering the profit margins and their size, that Apple and Google are really in the leading position here.
Brad, it's great to have you here. The book is called The Everything Store, Jeff Bezos and the Age of Amazon. Brad Stone is reporter for Bloomberg Business Week. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.